Oh my god, hello everybody, welcome back to another Papa Tikyo Reacts to Japan videos over here on the TkyoSam channel, where every Friday, yours truly, Papa Tikyo, gives you guys a nice reaction because I like to watch videos that pertain to Japan, and also I like to study Japanese while I do it. It's like my daily routine, and so today we've got a cool video called Japanese Worker as a Work Culture as a Developer by this guy called William in Japan. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not an IT guy, but in my Discord community, we have so many IT guys that want to work in or already work in Japan in there that we made our own section for people who want to work in IT in Japan. So anyway, yeah, without further ado, let's check out William's video and see what is the problem with being a developer in Japan. Let's get into it. Okay, here we are. Look at this handsome man. Let's go check it out.
If you're a developer in Japan, there's going to be some friction. Today I'm going to talk about what my life is like working as a developer in a Japanese company. I'm going to talk about my experiences, some of the things you need to look out for, hopefully some things that can maybe help you work in a Japanese company smoothly and adapt to things well. Honestly, there's a lot of pitfalls in Japanese companies that you got to be careful of, but things also aren't as bad as some people online would have you believe. The first thing on most people's mind is going to be overtime. Is there a ton of work after hours that you have to do? Yes and no. You're probably going to feel a lot of internal pressure to work longer hours, and that's because if your coworkers aren't going home late at night and you're the only one leaving first, you're gonna have to stand up when your time's up and you want to go home, and no one else around you will be. You're gonna have to say something like "osaki ni otsukaresama," and everybody's gonna be telling you "otsukaresama desu," and you'll be saying goodbye, and you'll stand out. There's no, like, if you quietly go to the door, that's not greeting people on the way out, and that's gonna be rude. So you might feel bad about it, and that's going to be tough, right? So you'll feel a pressure probably to keep working. If you're the kind of person that won't worry about that and you can just leave on time and feel no external pressure, then that's okay. If you're not feeling that at all, I'd question if you understand how others around you feel yet. If you feel it and you're just like making an informed decision, good. Unless you're at a really...
Wait. Okay, I know this video just got started, but the whole reason that, take in mind, guys, for all of you who are checking this out and you're watching my channel for the first time, I've been in Japan for almost 20 years now, and I've worked as an English teacher, I've worked as a translator, I've worked as like an international sales guy here at domestic Japanese companies. So I've had like a taste of everything here, right? The only thing is I haven't worked for an international company, I guess, here in Japan. But the whole Japanese people work late, and if you don't stay back, they won't, you can't leave before your boss. That's still a thing here. Obviously, like my Japanese buddies say it's a thing, but at the same time, the whole reason that system is there is because you're helping out. Like there's always the real reason and the good reason, right? And so the quote unquote good reason, the reason why you're supposed to do it is because you're helping out your senpais or you're helping out your coworkers. So when you need help, they'll feel obligated to help you out too. And so it's like, oh, you got your project done really early today. Can you help me out with this? It's supposed to be like that. The real reason why they do it is just because people are introverted and they don't want people to hate them. And so they're like, they don't want to get bullied or whatever. And they've got like a really scarcity mentality about like, oh man, I might get fired if I leave work at the time I'm scheduled for. And but in my personal experience, unless you really like your coworkers and they've helped you out a bunch, they've offered to help you, don't ever feel obligated to do that. It doesn't matter. Like if you get bullied or if they start being a dick or like you don't get paid, fuck it. There's a dime a dozen IT jobs out there in Japan. I'm guessing William speaks Japanese if he works at an IT company. So if you got IT skills plus Japanese, even like basic Japanese, there's tons of different jobs out there. So don't ever feel like, well, you don't understand Japanese culture. No. If you're in a shitty, toxic work environment, there's no reason to ever give anybody the benefit of the doubt for like being like, oh yeah, I'll just stay. I don't want to look rude. Nah, fuck it, dude. You get there's no respawn here. You get one life to live, and if they don't let you go at the time that you're scheduled to go, then yeah, fuck that. Just find a new job. Sorry, let me keep going.
really bad company. I don't think you're going to find a lot of bosses like pressuring you to actually stay late. I will say though, I have some older team members that are in different departments. So this isn't the engineering way of thinking or anything, but in different departments, you know, I have gotten before a remark when we're just at a party and drinking together. It's like, hey, you seem to always be able to get home on a good time. You seem to always be able to get out of the office at a good time and stuff like that. And this is only one guy I've ever heard this from. And we're on a friendly basis. So it's kind of shocked me, but it's like, yeah, I think this guy has, I don't know. I think he's suspicious of me. And first of all, when I go home, sometimes I do a little bit more work because I've got to wrap something up for the day. I personally don't like taking the crowded train, so I like getting ahead of that so I can get home at a good time, eat dinner with my family, and then clean up any emails that I need to or something after that. It's not necessary, but that's just how I like to do it. You know, I could tell this old timer was kind of like, maybe felt a little bit of resentment because he can't do that really, or at least he feels like he can't. So you might encounter some of that. In general though, in the engineering department, they're very progressive. A lot of them will like to work, you know, to end early and then make up the rest of their time with flex time, you know, so say at night or something. If you're using the sites I introduced to you to find jobs, you're probably not going to find a lot of buraku kigyo, very shady jobs. In fact, that kind of job is just decreasing in number in general, I think. But if you use the sites I introduced in some of the videos before, those sites generally won't let really shady sites on them in the first place. You shouldn't run into that kind of high pressure environment. Do your own investigation of the company ahead of time, look up any reviews if you can, just kind of, you know, scope everything out before you commit long term to that company.
Hell yeah,
and I think you'll have a trial period at that company anyway, where either of you can end that connection at any time. Do your due diligence, and if you feel pressure in the first, let's say, month working there or something, feel free to step away from it and just tell them, you know, this isn't working out for you. Or, I mean, I guess you could tell them more bluntly. One thing you don't want to do is quit and then go about talking bad about the company online and stuff, because it's a lot easier to get like a defamation lawsuit or something here in Japan. So I would be very careful about what you say online, so you're not going to be forced to work late. Well, are there any other times outside of working that you're going to have to commit? Nomikais is where you go out and drink with your coworkers. Or nomikai isn't specific to drinking with coworkers, but pretty much all companies have a culture where you go out and drink with your coworkers after work. My company specifically, weekly, there's someone going out and drinking from different departments. None of it is mandatory, of course, but again, like with working late, if everybody's going to these events and you're going to be the only one left out, eventually you're probably going to want to go to one. And my team personally, once they release a new feature, just as a celebration, they'll go out into a nomikai and drink together, and you eat some food there too. You generally all just order a bunch of different plates together, drink together, and then split the bill. I don't go every week though, because I want to get home to my family. But every now and then I'm like, you know, every now and then I feel a bit obligated to have a good time. In fact, if you want to dive into Japanese culture really quickly, I think it'll be a great experience to let yourself go to some of these nomikais. You're going to learn a lot about your coworkers, what their lives are like outside of work. Everyone loosens up a ton at this. Of course, a lot of people will drink at them. You don't have to drink at them. You know, they'll drink some and loosen up, and you'll hear stuff you would never hear inside of work. So I think it can be a really great experience. If you start attending these occasionally, you're going to be so much more immersed in the culture than 90% of other foreigners in Japan, I would say. Again, though, I don't think they'll put pressure on you. Just if you want to be included in that conversation the next day or something, you might want to go with them. And especially as
yeah, dude, like, I don't mean to cut him off again, and we're only 8 minutes into it, but yeah, I, like, it's such, like, it irks me so much when I see, like, these TikTok videos or something of, like, Westerners who come to Japan, and they're like, I don't drink, and I don't, like, I'm not going to do things the Japanese way. It's like, yeah, well, then work for a foreign country, work in a different country that's not Japan, or work for a foreign company in Japan. But like the entitled attitude of being like, I don't drink alcohol and I don't want to, and it's like, dude, like, okay, you can do that and you'll be fine, but like the whole point of working in Japan is like you get to experience Japanese culture. You get to experience all this stuff that other Japanese people, all the people that you saw in those animes do. And it's like, well, I didn't do that. Well, get a job at a foreign company then, you bitch ass. Like, come on, dude. It does not make sense to me when people come to Japan and they're like, oh my God, I got Japanned in Japan. How could this happen? You punk ass bitches. I'm not talking about William. William actually seems to let it, like, you know, he seems to let it on that, like, yeah, guys, like, you got to be prepared for this shit. Okay, back to the video.
As a foreigner, you don't want to, especially as a foreigner, you want to close that gap as much as you can. So if there's already this cultural divide, you know, going to nomikai will make you closer. I mean, it'll make you feel just like one of the team, you know, one of the other Japanese members on the team, right? You have a chance to close that gap a little bit, I'd say do it. There's a big nomikai at the end of the year called the Boninkai, which is Forget the Year party. It only happens once a year. It's basically a New Year's party. I would assume they have them overseas, but basically just a bunch of departments. So think of a nomikai times 10 or something. So that's fun too if you can participate in one of those. Aside from nomikais, My company personally has, occasionally they'll do a cookout where you can bring your kids, more of a family focused event. There'll be drinking there as well. In general, I'd say everyone just goes lighter, and the kids are running around outside while everybody barbecues together. And so that's another way to bond with people. Some companies will have like sports groups or something. If it's a pretty big company, you're going to have quite a few of those. My company personally doesn't have those. Some people go and golf together, but that's about it. Now that we got some of the social stuff outside of the workplace covered, what's it like actually talking to people within the company, specifically if you're an engineer? I got this question a lot in my first video. What language? Is it primarily English? Is it primarily Japanese? It's going to vary a ton based on the company, but in general, you're going to be able to get by with English quite a bit in the engineering department. English is kind of the lingua franca of programming. Most programming languages and frameworks, documentation is primarily written in English, and there will be translations sometimes, but most of the time you'll have to revert back to the English documentation. So engineers are really adept at listening to English specifically, and depending on the person, they might be really good at speaking it as well. Within the engineering department, you can get pretty far with that. The thing is, when you go outside of that, that's just not going to be the case. So if you're communicating with other departments, say the ones that talk to your clients, if it's a business-to-business company, they're going to be speaking primarily in Japanese. This is why I say it's super important to speak Japanese in Japan. I mean, this is Japan, we've got to speak Japanese. And it's going to take you really far if you speak fluent Japanese and fluent English, because you'll be able to go out on your own and speak to other departments. Anybody can speak within the engineering department in English. That's the easy part. If you can, say, go and get requirements or go and get actual user feedback directly without needing to go through a translator within your department, that makes you much more attractive. That's why it's needed. That's why you're going to get way more success finding jobs. You're not going to be confined to only huge tech companies, and you're not going to have to compete with all these other international candidates that just aren't willing to put in the work into learning Japanese. So learn some Japanese. Make yourself a super attractive candidate. As for the actual programming, variable names, they're in English. They will sometimes be very badly named. So feel free to, don't just go in and blow up the whole code base and try to refactor everything. But, when you're making changes, feel free, hey, can we rename this? Because this English name is a bit misleading. Feel free to do that within your company. I think it'll be appreciated coming from a native speaker. The comments will be a mixed bag. My team personally, most of the comments aren't in Japanese. I started writing new comments in English. So from here on out, I want to make all the comments in English because most Japanese engineers understand it anyway. Pull request, again, if you write in English, people will probably be able to understand. And even if they don't, they can translate the portions that are difficult. Let me just reiterate though, please speak Japanese if you're coming to Japan. If you're kind of bad at first, that's one thing, and I appreciate the effort, and I think the people around really appreciate the effort as well. If you're think everything should be handed to you in English, in a different country, please. One more step for communication. What is actually working in the engineering department? Like Agile, Scrum, Sprint, Jira, is it Jira? Waterfall, any system for development that has been developed overseas is pretty prevalent in Japanese development as well. So the system, I can't really go into much. I'm sure it's pretty much the same. On my team, I have a daily Scrum, sprint planning, retrospective, of course, and we have tickets. I plan out what we're going to do that week. So I think that's really similar to what I did back in the US. Every quarter we reset goals. We do OKR. The company has a goal, and then the product division has
God, wait, pausing again. I do not work in IT. I don't plan on working in IT. It's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know. It's just not for me. I'm more of a build stuff with my hands versus computers kind of thing. But big respect to this stuff. I didn't even know. Imagine how many people wouldn't be so lost when they graduate school if they got to spend they spend a whole year just going to different jobs and seeing, just being a fly on the wall and just seeing how it works and being yeah, I think that one's the one I got interested in. I want to try that one the best, versus just jumping in and having no idea. And him explaining, going through their daily routine and stuff, that's pretty cool. But, yeah, I mean, I totally did not take in mind that programming is primarily done in English. So these dudes would totally know at least that English. But if you can't talk to them and explain why, then yeah. But that's, I don't know, that's interesting. Anyway, let's keep going.
A goal, then specific products, those development teams have a goal, and we'll just work towards those. I think that's going to just depend on the company. As far as what is meeting those goals or not meeting them, if you don't meet the goals, there's nothing punitive at my company. It's mainly just for reflect on it as a team and then reflect on it as an individual. It's mainly for self-improvement and team improvement and measuring progress. You might imagine like in Japan, it's super top down. The top decides everything, and then like, okay, how do I follow that? At my company, it's much more of a collaborative effort where we all kind of talk, what do we need to get done, and we decide, you know, the steps that we actually need to do within each week to achieve those goals. If you do hit the goals though, I mean, this isn't directly correlated to the goals, but it's more like how good you do. At my company, we have 2 reviews per year. It's where basically your superior evaluates you. If you're an engineer, you know, you could go to a different level, rise a level. I don't know if you could, I'm assuming you could fall a level if you did really bad. They, you know, evaluate giving you a raise. Personally, one time I didn't hit my goal, and I'm like, I actually felt bad about it because I was like, man, I should have done better this quarter. But I got a raise, so I guess I did good enough. And I'm really appreciative of the fact that there's this system in place where I don't have to go out and ask for a raise. They automatically start the process themselves and see, okay, do we need to reevaluate this person's current salary? Don't know if that's common in other companies though. From what I've seen on the site Findy that I showed you, a lot of companies do seem to be doing evaluations twice per year. So while we're on the topic of salary, there's another thing I want to discuss with you, bonuses. Forgot the exact word for it here. Basically, bonuses. If you see bonus on a listing, you need to be careful because it could be a completely different type of bonus than you're thinking about. A lot of the times, bonuses here will be included in the yearly salary. Say you have a salary of 6 million yen per year. Well, in that is your bonus. So say your bonus is 1 million per year. You're being paid on that 5 million per year monthly. And then twice per year, you'll receive 500,000. 2 parts of that 1 million bonus, right? Which is a substantial sum, right? I mean, it'd be like getting $5,000 extra twice per year. So you got to be careful about that because you'll think, oh, this company gives out bonuses, which is great, but actually it's just in the salary already. This is becoming less common, but it's still quite a common practice. So just be sure if you see anything about bonus to ask what percentage of that salary is bonus, how often is it paid out? So probably twice per year, but just go ahead and ask. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad company, but it might mean that some other practices within that company are a bit dated. So why would they do that? Well, the contract they sign with you with your yearly salary, your base salary, you know, they would have to pay that. They can't get out of paying that. But with the bonus portion of that salary, if times were tough, they could cut everyone's bonus salary or just one person's bonus salary to save the company money. So in practice, you know, this would make people really upset. So they're probably not going to do it, but it's always a possibility. And also I think there's some tax implications, some ways that it's actually better for the person receiving it as well. So someone more knowledgeable about that, please comment if you could. And then I'm sure, of course, there are some companies that actually pay bonus like based on performance, but you just have to ask about that. So how is working with other Japanese developers? Of course, it's going to depend on the company and even more on the individual. But I think there's this image of Japanese people being shy and not really speaking up. There's a lot of truth to this. When I was being onboarded and participating in some planning meetings, I had some opinions and I could see another person had an opinion, like a kind of a doubt about what was being said, but they never spoke up about it. And eventually I spoke up. I was like, hey, what about this part? And that person then chimed in and agreed with me. That person had only been there about maybe a month or 2 before me, but they were, you know, still really hesitant about speaking out in a meeting with many people in it like that. But then, you know, once someone else spoke up, you know, once I spoke up, they also joined in. So I think you are going to see a lot more of that here than you would in the West, probably. Also with the workplace culture, at least among engineers, primarily men that I work with, there's much less of a tendency to talk behind people's backs because you know, someone talking about someone else behind their back would reflect negatively on them. And you know, Japanese people are extremely sensitive, and in general, Japanese people are more sensitive to, you know, that being perceived bad, being perceived as having like a hidden part of themselves. I think they're a lot more careful about that, and in my opinion, it makes for a better workplace. You know, if everybody.
Yeah, dude. Oh my God. Fucking pause it. Sorry, William. Dude. Like my buddies, back home, I don't know if they work in IT, but like I have a buddy that works in an office job back home in America land, and yeah, he was saying like one of the things he hates is that, like, you know, toxic work culture, right? Like these guys that like they just shit talk behind your back that you're working with, and I do love that about Japan. It's like, you know, that's like a red flag if you talk to, like, if you're in a job interview and you're like, yeah, like, you don't talk shit about your company that you worked for, even if they were assholes. And like, likewise, if you weren't the best, it kind of works kind of bad though, because if you weren't the best worker, that company, like, if they rarely call your other company for references, but if they do, they're very hesitant to talk shit because it makes them look bad, and they don't need people gossiping about the fucking company, right? So yeah, like, that is really nice. In Japan, it's like people don't talk shit unless they get really drunk at like a nomikai or something. But then it's like, okay, he let it out, it's fine, it's done. But there's no like going behind people's backs, or at least not that often. I mean, it's still, you can't completely stop it, but it is nice how Japanese people are just like, nah. And I really do. For all of you guys who are watching this like for the first time, or watching my channel for the first time, when it comes to me, I don't gossip behind people's backs. That's why I love my YouTube channel. If I have something negative to say about somebody, I'm gonna use my face and I'm gonna say it like right here. I'm gonna be like, yeah, that guy sucks. Cough, Tokyo Lens, cough. But anyway, it's just like I subscribe to the Henry Rollins school of thought when it comes to shit talking, which is like, if I got something negative to say to somebody, about somebody, I probably won't say it. But if I do have to say it or feel the need to say it, I'm gonna say it publicly with the intentions that that person heard what I said and they're 5 minutes away and they're gonna come and confront me about it. So I feel if a lot more people had that mentality when it came to being critical or talking shit about others, then I don't know, people wouldn't talk shit as much. But yeah, I do love what he pointed out, how it's like Japanese people don't talk shit because they know people, when they hear you talking shit, they're not thinking about like, oh, really? That guy did that? They're just thinking like, why is this bitter, sad piece of shit man saying these mean things about this guy? Like, if he was a real man, he'd have his shit together and he'd do something about it instead of gossiping like a little high school girl behind everyone's back, you know? Only weak little bitch ass guys do that, and I do love how Japan kind of supports that. I don't know about like workplace, but like, well, I mean, schools are a different thing, right? Schools are they're prevalent for bullying, but for the most part, I don't know. I don't think it's really a big thing, at least in big cities like here where you're working for a big boy company. But anyway, let's get back to it. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, I'm happy. Good job, William. Yeah, here we go.
He's not stirring up drama just because they don't want to be perceived as bad. I mean, you know, some people like to argue that, you know, it's better for everybody to say what they're thinking out loud, but in my opinion, if it never comes out of your mouth, the bad news about you never spreads. It's just that one person's thinking bad about you. I don't have a problem with it. But when someone does want to say something questioning another person, or like, well, I wonder what is going on with that person, they would only bring it up in like a nomikai setting, you know, where you're drinking. And even then, they would preface it with, I have a lot of respect for this person, I really like this person, but this is kind of strange, right? Or something. So people would be very careful about how they talk about other people here. I like it. It seems like there's a lot of mutual respect. But at the same time, you never know what's brewing under the surface, so you kind of got to be hyper aware and make sure you're really not upsetting anyone. So where do you work as an engineer? At my company, most engineers work twice per week in the office and work 3 days remote. But when I do go in, say on Monday, let me tell you, the train is extremely packed. Probably exactly like you imagine. Full of salarymen just in suits, you know, a sea of suits.
Yeah,
extremely packed. When I get on the train, I can always get on the train. At some of the stations I pass, like there's so many people in there already that, of course, people have to push their way onto the train. I think you can see that a lot online, but sometimes they can't even push their way onto the train. It's so crowded. Especially if there was a delay in the train, it's pretty good for being on time with all of their train schedule. But if there was, say, like a 5-minute delay, you're probably not going to ride on the first train that comes to your station. Your commute to work, this is very demoralizing. I really don't mind being in the office, but getting to the office and then coming home on another crowded train is horrible. I personally wish I was fully remote, but that's not how it is right now. And those train rides are something else. It sucks the life.
Yeah, I know he's going to continue on the train. Guys, for any of you who are coming to Japan, commuting sucks ass. And especially if you want to have a quote-unquote, like, real big size place or whatever, like a relatively big place, but you don't want to pay up the ass for it, then you're probably going to get a job on a commuter train station, and that means everybody else who thought the same way as you, which is a bunch of people, they're going to be on that train line too. So there's two things you can do about it. You can, one, move closer to work, which if you're the main breadwinner in your family, you can do that. But it's like, no, but I want a big house. I don't want to live in a small place. Well, what's more important, living in a smaller place and having like your mental health be better, or living farther away and just being like, I hate work. I hate this thing. Like, you know, like, you don't need to do that. You know, you can find a compromise, but with everything, like anything requires sacrifice, right? And for me, like, I'm a very low stress guy. Like, I don't know if I don't know. I mean, I probably look just the same, but I consider myself pretty decently young looking, and I think one of the reasons why is that low stress. I try to be not as stressed as possible when it comes to stuff. But yeah, one of the things that my buddy Mike would do is that he would get up early and he would get done with all of his stuff beforehand, and then he'd take the train to his work early or something, like someplace nearby, and he was always studying shit to get more credentials for work or whatever. So he would just spend the first couple hours, like he'd go to the gym, and then like he'd just go to a cafe somewhere nearby, and he'd just hang out and like study his coding stuff. And like that's what he would do, and they'd go to work. Take in mind his nights weren't that interesting, but at least on the way to work, he didn't have to commute standing up and in a cramped train. So that's one way to deal with it. But yeah, otherwise, you might want to just move closer to work or be on a train line that doesn't get that much heavy traffic. That's why it's always good if you work in a place like Chiba. Oppositely, you might want to just live in Tokyo, because if you commute to Chiba in the morning from Tokyo, no one's doing that. So you're going to have a place to sit down the whole time. But if you're commuting from Chiba to Tokyo, everyone else is doing that. So it's just, I don't know, put the odds more in your favor. But yeah, don't kill yourself over commuting shit. Yeah, let's get back into it.
Life out of me. The good news is most every company will pay for your commute. If you're like me and you go in not so often, at the end of the month you can apply and the company will reimburse all of your travel expenses. Or if you go in, say, every day, the company will buy you a commuter pass, which covers your home station to the company station. Anywhere in between there, you can ride an unlimited amount of times, even on the weekend. So
Yep.
if you go, say, on the weekends between those stations, your company's still covering all of your transportation costs, which is a great perk.
Yeah, that's
Contrast
good.
that to a place like
Persona
the US
5.
where you're not getting paid for the upkeep of your car, whereas here, just ride the train and 100% of your travel costs are paid. Some trains will have like a bonus car where you can pay extra and you can probably get a guaranteed seat. It's just going to be like filled with, businessmen also wanting to
Yep.
get out of the crowded train. It's still going to be pretty packed, but usually there will be a seat open. I know one of them is called the green car. I would say for most people
green
working in or
car.
around Tokyo, going to work by car is going to be quite rare. You may take the car from your house to the station that you're going to get on the train at, but
Yeah.
usually you're not just going to drive to the office. As far as other covered expenses, most people probably know about Japan.
Oh yeah, and guys, for the thing, yeah, most companies, if you're commuting into the city, they have parking, but it's always for the CEOs or the executives. It's never for the regular workers. And so one way I got around this was that I had a scooter. Now I have a motorcycle, but back in the day, because I like to pocket my transportation money, because it's just they put it with your salary when they pay you at the end of the month. And so what I would do, because that was like an extra $100 I saved every month by taking my scooter versus taking the train. So like that was an extra $100 just for doing something that I was going to do anyway. And I completely avoided long walks from the train station to work. This is specifically when I was in ALT in northern Tokyo. And yeah, like I would just take my scooter and like you can't park the scooter at work. And the main reason is that the schools would always have a giant fucking parking lot, but that's supposed to be for events. That's supposed to be for guests, and even guests know you're not normally supposed to park there. That's only like the parking is there just to never be used. It fucking sucks. And so what I would do is I would take this is a bad boy thing. People might hate me for this, but fuck you, whatever, punk ass bitch. I would park every school that I went to, and this probably means for any building that you guys are working near too. They always have like a pachinko place nearby, like in that area by the train station. And pachinko places always have motorcycle parking or bicycle parking because, they want people to go there. And so I would just park it all day. They don't give a shit. And if they didn't have a pachinko place, then I would find an apartment building and I would just park my motorcycle there. Because the few times I did Bible study with Japanese girlfriends or something at their place, I would always just park my bike there anyway. and then I would just be like, yeah, like I'm going up to my girlfriend's place, like, you know, screw you. Like you don't park in somebody's parking spot, but if you can find some place inconspicuous that's not in the way of anyone pulling out or pulling into their place, then like screw it, you know. It's only when people do that and they get in the way of everyone else is when you're an asshole. But if it's like, I paid $300 a month for this parking spot and somebody just put their bike here, and it's like, yeah, dude, suck it, you know, because in Japan they rarely tow motorcycles or scooters or cars unless it's in like a public street. Like if you're parked on private property and they tow your stuff, not only do they have to pay for the tow truck like right then, but also they can get sued. And Japanese people are afraid of getting sued. So yeah, like you know, that's my little gaijin hack tip of the day. I wouldn't suggest William, I see that face. I see that face. Don't look at me so judgmentally. Come on, bro. But it's just like yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying that like if you have a parking spot, or was it like you have a parking garage or parking area, but you don't let the regular workers that could commute that way because you're afraid then everyone wants to do that, then that's more of a you problem than me problem. So like, yeah, screw that noise. You know, I'm gonna go and park somewhere new. But then again, I love riding my scooter. I don't have my scooter anymore, but I love riding my motorcycle everywhere. So like, you know, if I can, I want to ride it. So it's fun. I love the experience. But anyway, yeah, that's my suggestion. You guys don't need to. I mean, some people like going on the train or whatever, but there are ways around this, and you're not breaking the law. You're just breaking the rules. But if your company's gonna fire you over some stupid petty shit like that, then you probably don't want to work for that company to begin with. So anyway, yeah, let's keep going. Bakoosh.
Having having a government subsidized healthcare system. I'm not super familiar with the details of this. Basically, all I know is deducted from your taxes automatically. Depending on your salary, it could be a couple $100s per person, and then you just go to the doctor, pay a very small amount per visit. Doctor,
Yep.
dentist, eye exams,
Nope,
that
I
kind
love
of
the
stuff.
healthcare
Go
here.
in. Someone that knows more about the healthcare system, please explain what you can in the comments. Your company will give you an insurance card and give you an insurance card for all of your family members, and you just take that and
Yep.
present it to wherever you're having an
Shakai
appointment.
Hoken.
Another thing that's just automatically done for you is taxes. If you're coming from the US, you probably
Yep.
know you have to do your tax stuff at the end of the year, file taxes here. That's all taken care of for you if you're just a regular company employee. If you have a side job, you're going to need to get something from your employer, fill out the form, and actually file your taxes yourself. Or you can tell your employer how much you earned on that side job and some of the details, which probably most people don't want to give to their employer, but that is another way of doing it. It's a good perk.
Yeah, guys, yeah, that's the thing that a lot of people don't. Oh, well, I don't think English teaching companies do this. I mean, I still had to file my taxes separately when, like, I was just an ALT or like a Juku teacher. But yeah, a lot of companies, I don't know about now, but back in the day, you could get fired. It was in your contract that you couldn't work a side job. And a lot of people get found out for having side jobs from their employers because they're stupid and they still let their employer like do the taxes for them. And like the employers do this as a way to help you, quote unquote, but it's like the good reason, the real reason again, right? The good reason is they're helping you, so you don't need to do it. But the real reason is they want to know if you're making any side income. And I'm guessing the psychology behind that is that they're worried that if you're making too much side income, then you could quit. And if you're a valuable asset, they want you to be dependent on them. So you can't have that many options to quit if they treat you like shit. I don't know. But yeah, you can easily get around this by just saying, hey, I'm going to do my taxes myself. And so just give me this stuff. And most of the time, the HR or whatever, like the accounting department of that company, they're going to be so bogged down with everybody else's stuff. They'll be really happy just to give you that shit because that's one less person to worry about. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, keep going. Sorry, William. I know. Look at William's face. He's like, bro, can I just finish the video? I'm sorry, William. Let's keep going.
You know, to not have to think about this stuff, not have to think about insurance, not have to think about taxes. Sure, you want to audit it sometimes, knowing that there's no time crunch on you to do some of these things is, I think, a good peace of mind. Another part of working at a Japanese company is practically a trope at this point, but you know, the senpai culture, the senpai kohai culture. So senpai just means you're superior, and it's anyone that's entered the job before you. It could be someone that's older than you as well, but in a company setting, it's typically someone that came into the company before you. So that might only be a couple months in the company before you, but you know, they're your senpai. There's not a strict set of rules around this. It's just generally, you know, people know to treat this person with some respect. We're
Yeah.
not talking about people that are like actually a level above you, like actually you're senior engineers where you're a mid-level engineer. No, this is talking the same level of engineer on your team. There's still senpais among that. For example, someone you train, you're
Yep, the
onboarding them onto
senpai.
your team at the same level as you, and they might have more experience than you, but they will defer to you often. At this company, you're their senpai. So say you came in a couple months
Yep.
before them, but they've got 2 more years experience, but they're coming and asking you tons of questions every day. It's not necessarily because they don't know what they're doing, it's because they want to defer to you and make sure they're doing everything right to please senpai, basically. And they will gradually, since they're
Please
at
the
the same level
senpai.
as you, that will kind of fade off, and as you go to nomikais together or get used to one another, that will go away. But at first, there's that deference towards you, and they're not just going to come into the company, oh no, I got this, I already know what to do in this part. Then there's none of that. One thing I really want to tell people coming to work in Japanese companies.
Yeah, guys, just chiming in again. Yeah, for the Kohai Senpai thing, a lot of people don't like it, but um, I think that it cuts through a lot of bullshit, and it keeps humility there for people, so they're humbled and shit, so they don't come in just being a jackass, being like, I know what to do, fuck you, like some people might in America. But yeah, I also just I like it how in Japan, I don't know if William's going to mention this during the video, but in Japan, if you work at a Japanese company, they have horenso, which means spinach. But spinach, that means spinach. But that's actually like a nickname, or what do you call it? It's not an acronym, but it's a shortened phrase for hokoku. That means report. Ren, which means renraku, which means like call or like contact, and then the soldan, which means discuss. And so horenso, hokoku, renraku, soldan. So the one thing in Japanese companies is like they hate it when people assume stuff. They want you to confirm, like that secretary in that Seinfeld episode where she's like, "So, would you like Madison Square Garden seats at the top or at the bottom, or if at the bottom, but the front of the front of the ring or the back, or like?" And it's like like it's just when you're overly kind of confirming, it shows how much you care about the detail and you're not just winging it. Some places they'll be like, "Yeah, fuck it, I don't care, wing it," but for the most part, when you join a company, they want you to be kind of like overly confirming stuff just to show that you're on top of it, that you don't want to fuck up, you don't want to inconvenience people. So, yeah, that's nice. Anyway, keep going. Oh God.
Is you just got to be humble. Even aside from that, like deferring to
Humble.
your senpai,
Yes.
there's this whole culture of not being overly sure of yourself. Like, oh,
Yep.
this is the way it is, and that's how I see it, and then just leaving it at that. Saying that's how you see it is fine, but like people will usually add on to the end of that. Like, 自分はこんな考え方なんですけど、どうですか? This is what I think, but what does
Yeah.
everybody else think? Always defer to everyone around you and leave the discussion open for everybody else to put their opinions in. For me, I came from a real small town back in the US. Everything was really in a close-knit community, and combine that with the fact that I was pretty shy, and my personality just really lines up with Japanese culture in that respect. Not that that's better or anything, it's just I kind of felt that easy to adapt to. I know for some people that might be kind of against their nature, but I think if you can learn to just go through the motions of, this is what I think, what do you think? Or that's how I see it. Is there something better we can do? Making a nice space where everybody can collaborate is going to be super important in a Japanese company. Of course, making a collaborative space is important everywhere, right? But it's just like you want to double the effort you put into that here. All right, guys, I think we covered a lot of ground in today's video. If you have any questions, please come over to the Discord. I'm going to put it in the description of this video. We've got a really fast growing community. People are always answering one another there. It's a great place to be. Come on over. Bye.
Cool. Okay, that was badass. Thank you, William. Thank you for that informative video. Yeah, that is one nice thing about Japan that like I didn't like at first when I joined Japanese companies is that you'll work with somebody for like a year or two and then they'll be like, I'm pregnant, and you'll be like, I didn't even know you were dating or you were married. Like, what the fuck? And then like at first I felt like a little bit hurt that like people wouldn't be personal with me on that, but then I realized like, yeah, it's like I'm personal with the people that I go to nomikais with, but it's like, yeah, for the people that I barely knew, like they kept that stuff separate. And I like that though about Japan, is that like you're not friends with your coworkers. I mean, you could be friends with some of them, but like overall you're not like Japanese people have their own social group outside of the workplace. There's the third place, I forgot what it's called, the third place theory or the third place whatever. Like in America, you got your work and you got your home. But where do you go to hang out with people? Well, you could have gone to the mall, but malls aren't really a thing anymore. Or you could go to a bar, but if you're going to a bar, you can't really drink and party. So it's like, what can you do, right? And so like in Japan, at least in the cities, there's a ton of third places where they got tons of bars, they got tons of parks, they got arcades, they got all these places where you can go to meet and hang out with other people that you don't work with. And so I really do love how Japan, like Japanese people for the most part, when it comes to like work life stuff, especially office life stuff, they try to keep it separate, you know, and like because it's always about not inconveniencing the other people, and you're like, I don't want to know too much about you because that's your life, and if you want to share it with me, that's fine, but like I don't want to feel an obligation to share my shit unless we're really cool and we've drunk outside work quite a bit, you know. So I love the professionalism they have here, at least for when it comes to white collar stuff. And so anyway, let's get into a big webcam part. Boom. Anyway, yeah, so that's my reaction to Japanese work culture as a developer from William in Japan. What did you guys think about it? Do any of you guys do IT work? Let me know. How is your work environment where you work right now? Is it good? Is it bad? If so, tell me why. And also, if any of you guys are doing remote work, can you tell me, did you like start out doing remote work, or like how did you fall into remote work? I want to know. I'm not interested in doing it, but the guys in my Discord, we got the whole IT, I work out of the house section, so I bet they'd be curious as well. And I'm going to put the links for this video on William's channel down in the video description down below, so make sure to go follow him. I bet he's got some bangers for you to go check out. And yeah, guys, like always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and subscribe bell to get notified. And if we're premiering this, then we might be live streaming afterwards, so check in the premiere chat for that. And yeah, follow me on my socials. I also have a really cool Discord that we're always looking for really cool hot young women and hot young women men women mans to come in and join the Discord and be part of the fun. Anyway, without further ado, you guys have a good one. You stay black, and old Scottish Amadishta. Yeah, buddy.
It's time you bit the bullet and started caring about something with all your heart and energy. But you can't care about it if you're always holding yourself back in case it doesn't work out.